Clipper Nation would love nothing more than to see Kawhi Leonard come back ASAP. Let's talk about the comments Ty Lue said in regards to Kawhi Leonard and his workouts and how his progression is going. In all essence, it's probably good that Coach Ty Lue hasn't really been, watching too much of Kawhi Leonard and watching too much of his progression or noticing it at all because, he has a job to do. He has other guys to coach. He has to coach the guys that are there. He has to keep up afloat with the guys that are on the floor and who's active. Right now, Kawhi isn't active, but his progression is going very well, despite what any former announcers might say or anybody that has anything bad to say about him or any naysayers. Kawhi's doing good. I mean, the progression that he has, honestly, he's progressing a lot better and a lot faster than what people think. I mean, you hear comments from Jerry West saying that, he's doing really good. He's walking around, being mobile, moving at a pace that makes it look like he's never been injured. Same thing Kawhi Leonard said at Media Day. It's one of those things where, you watch a player do his very best to put the work in and try to get himself back to where he was and get himself back, as quickly as he can. And apparently what the Clippers are seeing as an organization is that he really wants to come back and try to help this team win. So he's trying to push himself as quickly as he can and be as effective as he can, but trying to do it in the best way so he can come back, the same player he was. And, that's the notion. You want him to come back as the same player. You want him to come back as the player that he was, because that's what you're going to need if you're trying to win a championship, because all these other teams, they are talented. They have a lot of teams now are adding more depth, and the Clippers are going to have to be prepared for that. And the only way to do so is to have all your firepower there and ready to go. And your main guy, your key cog in Kawhi Leonard is going to have to be healthy and have to be able to mimic some of the things he did last year in the playoffs and even last year in the regular season when he comes back. Now, of course, the notion was March, April for him to come back. Just listening to the way that Jerry West, spoke on it, and, Ty Lue and others around Kawhi Leonard, saying that he's progressing very well. I mean, of course, you don't want to bite too much into that also because, you take some stuff with a grain of salt. You don't want to be 100% believing in what, anybody else says. You got to see it for yourself. Because, a lot of times, they say the right things just to keep the media off their back. Honestly, if you look at last year in the playoffs when Kawhi got hurt, he was listed like day to day from game to game when his ACL was torn, basically. And he wasn't going to come back. But, they kept the notion out there that he would, and they just kind of kept that notion alive, I guess, just to kind of keep teams on their toes and keep teams wondering whether Kawhi is going to come back or not. And that kind of really actually helped them in their strategy and in the playoffs, even after Kawhi Leonard got hurt, because teams really just didn't know what was going on or how to take them or whether Kawhi was going to step on the floor again, and how they prepared for the Clippers, not knowing whether Kawhi would come back. So the unknown really kind of threw teams mentally off when they played the Clippers, which gave the Clippers the advantage, and that's the reason why I think they beat Utah. And I think it's the reason why it took the Suns to a 6-game series, because, it really was nothing clear on Kawhi's status. And that could be the case this time. Everybody's saying the right things. Everybody is, saying that to the media. But I do believe that Kawhi is progressing very well. I believe they're not lying. I believe they're actually telling the truth. Because Kawhi Leonard himself at Media Day, like I said he doesn't even feel injured. He doesn't even feel like, something's wrong. Now, of course, we know it is. It's a partial tear, but at the same time, he is very mobile, moving very well. He's got progression, in his videos where he's dribbling, shooting, doing box jumps, things like that. Things that a lot of people probably wouldn't be doing if the ACL was tore. Most guys or most athletes, they don't really have this much mobility this early. And Kawhi is just quietly progressing, and I think Kawhi is actually doing a lot more behind the shadows that a lot of people don't see. On his own personal time, and because Kawhi is a real private guy, so the things it's almost like the things he wants you to see, he will. But there's things that he probably does, of course, that he doesn't want you to see, and you won't see those things. And he's one of the type of people that, he'll let people believe what they want, knowing that it's a whole lot different than what they believe. To me, he just has that mentality, and that bodes well for him. So that's definitely a good thing. But the main thing about Ty Lue's comments that that really might strike some people in a good way is, he was just basically saying that you can look at it at clutchpoints.com, but he was basically saying that I don't want to get too excited. I've been looking at Kawhi's progression. He's progressing really good. He said he hasn't been looking at Kawhi's progression, as much, trying not to notice it too much. I'm pretty sure he's seen it from afar, as he was stating, but he said he just doesn't want to get too excited, based off of the things he's hearing and what he has seen of Kawhi Leonard so far. And then, I definitely can agree with that, because you don't want to, boost yourself up too much. They definitely can't wait for Kawhi to come back because they know what he brings, they know what he can do, and they know how great of a player he is, and what he is shown to be. And he can definitely lead this team to a championship. Him and Paul George could lead this team to a championship if both of them are healthy. And that's the notion, and that's what they hope for. And, honestly, for Ty Lue to say that, he don't want to get too excited for the Kawhi to come back, I definitely agree with that, because when you see a player like him getting closer and closer and closer, and knowing that this team really has an opportunity to win, and knowing that your best player is trying his best to come back and looking very good in doing so, Paul George will be back. It might be hell to pay for a lot of teams when they do get healthy, because a lot of people are not talking about the Clippers. A lot of people are downing them, or maybe not even down. A lot of people are not even, acknowledging them or excusing what they're doing. Honestly, they haven't been playing the best basketball in the world, because I've criticized them some myself. But, even though you may criticize some things they do because you see some flaws, well, they have kept afloat as far as, the best they could in regards to the playoffs. They were like in the 4th or 5th seed, maybe a few weeks ago, about a month ago almost. So, they right now they're in the 6th seed. So, they've been holding up, fairly, fairly well when you look at, what they have and how depleted they are and how undermanned they are. They've been holding up very well. And a lot of their pieces, honestly, the good thing about injuries sometimes, I will say this, even though I feel like it's overall bad for any injuries on a team, it allows other players to flourish. It allows other players to get comfortable in the offense and the rotation. So when their number is called upon in big moments in the playoffs, they're used to it, or they have the confidence in their mind they can go out there and do it because they actually been playing. They haven't been sitting on the bench, keeping the bench warm and being cheerleaders on the sideline. Everybody on the Clippers has actually played in an NBA game. Everybody on the Clippers has actually been in games before. It's not like most teams where you see 3-4 players on the bench you've never seen or never heard of, never gets any playing time. Only time they really play is in practice. But that doesn't work for the Clippers. The Clippers have had every player on their roster play in a game before. It's just because they had so many injuries, and because Ty Lue believes exploring a lot, with his lineups, it definitely gives everybody an opportunity to go out there and show what they have. And that's the good in Ty Lue. And I know that Ty Lue really wants, Kawhi back. And of course, he wants all his players there, of course. But, of course, you want to have Kawhi Leonard there because he can carry the load when he's healthy. And when he's healthy, he's top 2, top 3 player in the world. And I don't really think that's debatable. A lot of people talk about, James Harden and players like that. But those guys, they're good. But James Harden never even won a championship. So you can't even put him in that category to me. Is he a top 10 player? Of course he is. But is he a top 5 player? I'm not sure about that. I just can't put somebody in my top 5 who hasn't won a championship. That's just me personally. I don't know about anybody else, but you got to win a championship to be in my top 5. Because if you're a top 5 player, you just got to have something about you that other players don't, and you got to have done it on the biggest stage and prove to us in the world that you belong there. So that's another story for another day. But I definitely think that Kawhi is progressing, and I definitely think that, Ty Lue's comments were good, and I definitely think that, it's good for him not to try to get too excited and try to just, focus on what he has, what's on the floor, and be content with that. And then when Kawhi walks through the door, then, the sigh of relief can come then, so, I definitely agree with, that notion, because if I was coaching, I definitely would have the same notion. I would be excited that my best players are coming back, but I definitely wouldn't be too overly excited, because you don't want to get yourself too worked up, just in case something goes wrong, or, of course, you just got to focus on the guys you have on the floor right now who can help you win and who's active. And that's just the way a coach should think. And that's how a coach should be, deemed to think, when he's in the middle of a job coaching and have other players to develop, knowing that, he has to get the other players on the same page and understand the system and get them going. So when the playoffs come, if their number is called, it'll be a situation like last year. Terrence Mann number was called in a big moment. And what did he do? He came through big in that Utah series. But see, the reason why he did that was because of what? Ty Lue having him play in the regular season, giving him substantial minutes, letting him play in, big regular season games. And it gave him that confidence. It gave man that confidence to go out there and just let it go and let things happen and be fearless and understand that you're in the moment, and, you got to be at your best when your number's called. And that's what happened. He scored that 39 points in the Utah series, which ultimately helped the Clippers get past Utah, going on to the Phoenix Suns in the next round in the conference finals. And see, that's what, Ty Lue has to worry about and has to think about right now. He knows Kawhi Leonard will come back, but he has to just, wait and see like everybody else. And it's a process, and you don't want to get too up and ready for the process when, you're not exactly sure when the process is going to be over with and when Kawhi Leonard could step back on the floor. But as far as Kawhi's progression and everything, I've been impressed with it. And I think a lot of other people have. And I think, they're just being precautious with him enough to where, for him to feel comfortable enough to come back, and for them to feel comfortable enough, like, okay, yeah, he's ready to go, he's ready to play, and now we're ready to make that run. So because I know the Clippers are definitely thinking, the analysts are talking about the Warriors, they've been talking about the Lakers, and they've been talking about the Nets and all these other teams, but nobody's talking about the Clippers. And I know the Clippers just are thinking in their mind, well, hell, if we had Kawhi Leonard along with Paul George, trust me, we would be the second or third seed easily, because they're better than the Phoenix Suns when they're healthy. I think they're better than the Warriors when they're healthy. That's just my opinion. Klay Thompson is coming back, don't get me wrong, but Klay Thompson ain't played in 2 years. So, there is going to be some waning in his game. It's not going to be quite how it was, I don't think. And if he does come back the same way, that's good for him. I really hope he does, because he's been out a long time. Haven't seen him play in a while. Definitely want to see him back on the court as well. But, am I taking Klay Thompson over Kawhi Leonard? No. Am I taking Stephen Curry over Kawhi Leonard? No. That's what I'm saying. So even if the Warriors and the Clippers played in a 7-game series, the best player on the floor when healthy is Kawhi Leonard. He's better than both of those players. They're better shooters than Kawhi Leonard, but they're not a better all-around player. And that's the difference. They play both ends of the floor. Klay Thompson does too. But, PG and Kawhi play both ends of the floor at a little bit different of a pace. They're more recognized as two-way players because they make more splash plays on the defensive end. And Kawhi Leonard is the best two-way player in the NBA, has been that way for years now. And I don't think it's really going to change anytime soon. But yeah, if the Warriors and the Clippers play, I definitely would take the Warriors. I definitely would take the Clippers. If both teams are healthy, I definitely would take the Clippers, because, like I said, the best player on the floor would be Kawhi Leonard, and it wouldn't even be close. And I think that Stephen Curry is a great player, but he has his nights where he's shooting well, and then he has times where he's not shooting great. And some of his playoff numbers, they dip some in the playoffs. He does shoot, very well, but he can, trust me, he can have nights where he's off, and that's where the Clippers can neutralize that at. And I think overall, if you put defense on him and get in his space, you can make him feel uncomfortable, and you can get the Warriors off. You can definitely beat them. And I definitely think the Clippers know that they could beat the Warriors. I definitely think the Clippers know that they could beat the Lakers, since they already done that with Luke Kennard hitting big shots along with Marcus Morris. And I definitely think the Clippers know they can own the West, because, like I said, the Phoenix Suns, they would have beat them last year if Kawhi didn't get hurt. So, Ty Ty Lue is just thinking in his mind, I don't want to get too excited because I know I got Kawhi coming back. I know PG's coming back. And these teams they're talking about, it's just a waste because we're better than them, but we're going to show them when we get all our players back and we're going to make the run that everybody think we can't do. But hey, that's my take on the situation. You leave any comments in the comment section. Let me know what you think as always. And hey, Cali out.